Imagine you're in charge of government and you decide that it's time to take your existing jungle council and you're going to switch it over to STV. One of the things that is an option is because STV requires there to be more than one representative per range, you can either triple at a bare minimum or quintuple the number of politicians you have, which might be something you want to do, but there are many good reasons why you might not want to do that. Here's a more reasonable way in which you'd actually switch over a country to STV. Here's a map of our current electoral ranges, each of which sends one representative. So step one is we're going to get rid of all of these ranges and we're going to redraw the boundary. So instead of everybody getting elected from one range, we're going to draw ranges that have 5 representatives in each. Now, if local representation means anything, you're probably going to want to try to draw these boundaries in meaningful ways in your country. So they follow natural boundaries, or they follow town boundaries or historical boundaries. You're going to want to try to match those as close as you reasonably can. But an important thing to realize is that you do not have to have all of the ranges be the exact same size in terms of representatives. So in the bottom corner of the map over here, you can see we have a kind of animal city. And so what you can do is, instead of trying to divide that up into a bunch of 5 representative ranges, you can take it and say, no, we're just going to cut it into 2. There's the north half of the city and there's the south half of the city, and that's 2 ranges with 9 representatives each. Now you may be asking, why don't you just make it 1 range with 18 representatives? The answer is there's a kind of trade-off for making larger ranges. The larger the ranges, you have a benefit in that it is going to be more representative of the local population. So in theory, a range with 40 or 50 representatives would be even better than a range with just, say, 5. But the price you pay for a bigger range is a more complicated election, because if there are, say, 9 seats open, you're probably going to have at least 20 candidates running. So if you actually have a range that has 18 seats available, you're probably looking at an election that's going to have 40 or 50 candidates, which is a little bit beyond what you can expect a reasonable person to be able to distinguish among. Even 18 is getting a bit up there, which is why reasonable STV systems allow you to just list your favorites as far as you care to go, say 1 through 5, and then just not fill in the ballot anymore because you don't care anymore. Now, the flip side to this problem is when you have a very sparsely populated region, as we have in the upper left here. Many countries have their own version of flyover regions where the population is widely distributed and very thin. In that case, trying to draw a range that had 5 representatives might just be comically large, so big as to just make a mockery of the very notion that these representatives are local in any sense of that word. So if you have a very sparsely populated region, you can have a smaller range as well. So in this case, we're going to make 1 range with 3 representatives in the corner. Now, as before, the advantage you get with a smaller election is that it is easier to follow. There are going to be fewer candidates running. However, smaller ranges are much more susceptible to intentional gerrymandering, and 3 is at about that number. If your country is switching over to single transferable vote and it wants to make all of the ranges 3, you should be very suspicious because 3 is gerrymanderable. It is going to be less proportionate than a larger range. It is acceptable under certain reasonable circumstances, but it definitely shouldn't be the standard. 5 should really be the minimum, and 9 should probably be the maximum.